Welcome to this week's episode of The County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. The war on drugs, it's been going on for 30 some odd years, almost as long as I can remember in my adult life. And yet today, with the billions of dollars spent, we still have a problem with people becoming hooked, becoming addicted, committing crimes to support their habit, and ending up in jail. Unfortunately, the costs of incarceration are very expensive and the recidivism is quite high, which is why Utah has been pioneering a new program called Dora. It started in 2006 and has moved forward, and it has proven to be a very effective alternative when you take the force of corrections and tie it to the healing of mental health. Does it work? Well, let's meet some of the people that have used the system.
If somebody were to ask me what is the best gift anybody ever gave you in your life, it would be the Dora program.
I believe that, we still, we pull ourselves up with our bootstraps, but sometimes it's nice to have somebody help you get some boots. So.
I see people struggle wanting to get better and not have the resources and not have the support. And I also have seen that the public, in many cases, was not educated about how to respond to people. And again, I'd like to emphasize that these are human beings. They're somebody's son, they're somebody's neighbor, they're somebody's father, somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody sitting next to you at church. And it affects all economic, social backgrounds. Addiction escapes no one, no family.
During that first month, just listening and hearing, these people were telling my story. It might be different with a different drug or alcohol, but the bottom line was it was my story. And it was just the weight that it took off of me, realizing that I was with people who we all handle things differently, but the reality is we're all handling it the same.
You get an individual who's got substance abuse issues, who gets adjudicated, and then is interviewed and assessed and found appropriate for Dora, at which point they have a Dora agent involved, an agency, and a Dora coordinator, and they try and find the appropriate treatment and placement for that individual. And then as that individual gets involved in treatment, there's a combination of the probation officer and the clinicians meeting and doing a handoff, and that handoff sort of connects the relationship. But they also are probation officers that are kind of handpicked, that know something about addiction, that know something about counseling, and that are committed to kind of getting the client through treatment and getting them stabilized in the community. So it's really kind of a nice fix with public safety versus treatment.
They've taken the fear out of the drug addicts. They've taken the fear and they've embraced it and replaced that with love. They've almost where they've taken an understanding and try, by them putting their probation officers through training, they're able to understand the way an addicted mind works. It makes me feel like not so much that I'm being watched, but that I'm being cared for. That I matter, and that's probably the biggest thing. Now I feel like I matter, and I feel like if I were to mess up on this, it'd be taken away from other people who really need it. So I feel special that I get to be the one that's using this program.
We have quite a few clients who changed their lives completely. One in particular, he, with his felony charges, just struggled to find a job, and he looked for a job for several months, but because of his charges, he would be turned down and rejected. And he decided instead to go back to school and, was able to start a whole new career in a different field and had more opportunities open up to him.
The group here is fantastic. I can't speak highly enough of how much they helped me get through my guilt, which was a lot of the pain, excuse me, but just coming here and listening and the advice and listening to others has just helped immensely.
Well, there you have a little bit about the people that are involved in the program. We're going to get into the details of the genesis of the program, how it works, and some of the challenges that lie ahead in our county seat program here in just a minute. Join us for our panel discussion right after this commercial break.
Believe it or not, summer isn't far away, and neither is Juab County. There's no need to travel far to find the perfect family adventure. Boating Yuba Reservoir, exploring Mount Nebo, riding Little Sahara. Save your gas this summer and stay in your own backyard. Juab County. It'll change your family forever.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, SITLA, manages 3.5 million acres of Utah lands with the express purpose of providing financial support to further the education of Utah's students, while promoting local industry, oil and gas, even residential development, all at the same time. Through the careful use of trust lands, the School Land Trust Program will distribute nearly $37 million to Utah schools this year. The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, building the state's permanent school fund.
Unlimited opportunity for adventure. It's all about knowing where to look. ATV adventures, rock crawling events, art festivals, and wildlife events. The opportunities are limitless. Pick your adventure in Millard County.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is the Drug Offender Reform Act. Joining us for our conversation, Brent Kelsey, who is the Assistant Director of the Utah Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health. Pat Fleming, who is the Director of the Salt Lake County Division of Behavioral Science and Health Services. Sean McMillan, who's the Executive Director of the First Step House. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation today.
Thank you.
On an average day reading the paper, everything that you guys do just kind of, for the most part, flies right under the radar. Let's take a little bit of time and talk about the genesis of Dora. Where did this come from? Did this start in the drug courts, or how did this whole thing come along?
Well, actually, the drug court was the model because up until drug courts came in the late 1980s, there was really no connection with the criminal justice system and corrections and treatment. And with drug court, what we saw is mandatory treatment with the judge being sort of the super case manager really did work. So with Dora, what we said is, well, how can we do something like that and get that same benefit, but use somebody other than a judge? Judges are very few and they're very expensive. And so judges are very, very highly trained people in our society. So what we said is, well, let's try to use a different way of providing that kind of super case manager. So we came up with the idea of using adult parole and probation agents instead. And so that was the genesis of the whole thing. That's how it actually started.
Go ahead.
Well, let me explain part of the rationale. Very few people who are involved in the criminal justice system and struggle with addictions wake up and say, you know what, today's the day I really need to be in treatment. And we had a huge problem with people dropping out of services early, and that partnership with the criminal justice system allowed us to create some external pressures to make sure that people followed through with treatment services.
Public safety and the public health mission they're not mutually exclusive. They can be complementary, and that's what's so unique about the Drug Offender Reform Act is that it seeks to create an environment where that public safety mission of adult probation and parole or criminal justice system is used to complement what we're doing in treatment.
You know, the thing that I noticed with probation officers that we worked with when we started this program is that they were frustrated also. Yeah. They were frustrated with arresting the same people over and over and over again, and they wanted to try something different. And this collaboration with treatment providers through Dora allowed them to try a different approach with people. Instead of just seeing people arrested or fail on probation or parole, work with treatment providers to make sure that people got the services they needed so that they wouldn't see them again.
You get an enforcer who's looking at black and white rules and compliance, and you've got an empath who's trying to help somebody work through their personal problems. It seems like the personalities involved are very different, or at least their mission statements.
Well, let me just jump in. I think the key feature about Dora is this. That's the way the model used to work in the old days, where you had the criminal justice system with the enforcer being the adult parole and probation officer, and then you have folks providing treatment services. What we did with Dora is we said, hey, both of those have a real valuable role in this. Let's put them together as one team. So let's not violate that Dora offender immediately. The bottom line for Dora is cost containment, is keeping the taxpayers from having to pay more dollars to lock somebody up. $30,000 a year to lock somebody up as opposed to $4,000 to treat them in Dora. So what happens is put the team together, keep that person from having to go back to prison, help them on the road to recovery, help them on their way to the rest of their life. That was the key feature of Dora, and that's why it works.
Okay, so we started the program in 2006, and the thing that I'm looking at is like the funding just seems erratic like crazy. The first couple of years, you know, it looks like, okay, you got a pilot program, you spend $500,000, $1 million, $8 million, $9 million, and then all of a sudden it starts getting cut again.
Yeah, well, we started the program as a pilot in Salt Lake County, and due to the success there, we expanded it. Just before the sort of the budget crisis in 2009, it was funded as a statewide program, but during the cuts that took place in 2009 through 2011, it was scaled back down to where it's now operating in about 15 counties.
What is the net impact of that? Is it just less people treated and more people back in jail?
Both.
Yeah.
Well, I got 3 heads nodding on that, so I think there's some consensus across the panel. So there's obviously, as an administrating agencies, you probably aren't very happy with that, but...
Well, you know, I mean, all government services took a hit during the recession. Utah's bounced back faster than almost any other state. We have great support in the legislature for this program. Senator Chris Butters, who is a longtime senator from South Jordan, was the champion of this because he saw saving dollars and helping people get their lives back on. And we're starting to get back at it again. And I think if we're able to do some things with the Affordable Care Act, I think people will be able to get treated, and maybe we can save some Utah tax dollars on it. So the key thing in the future.
Some of those big dollar amounts, were they like infrastructure development for the program? Was that part of it?
No, it was just buying bodies, basically. In Salt Lake County, for instance, we contract. So we're completely privatized. So Sean's one of our biggest providers. We give Sean money, he goes out and gets the buildings all set up and does everything. So really, Dora was really efficient because it really got money out into services almost immediately.
Does it work?
Dora works. I think it's important to recognize who we're treating in this program. The people that are coming through the Dora program tend to be high-risk individuals who are likely to return to using drugs or alcohol without some type of intervention, and also likely to be rearrested. So Dora is not a magic bullet that solves everyone's problems all the time, but it does work much better than the alternatives.
And I guess it says here your average cost is about $5,000 in treatment as opposed to $35,000 in incarceration.
Right.
Close, yeah.
Right.
So about 12% of the individuals we serve at First Step House are Dora funded. Their completion rates are among the highest that I have, which is up around 58%. Of that group, 69% are employed at discharge, and the average income for those individuals goes from about $700 per month to $1,900 per month at discharge.
That's a very good point, a point at which we need to take a break. We'll be right back with the county seat. We will continue our conversation on Dora, the Drug Offender Reform Act, and the programs that result in it, and where we go in the future. Stay with us. We'll be back with the county seat.
So, what brings you to town?
What brings anyone to St. George? A couple rounds of golf, a little relaxation.
What, is that all?
Is there more? In a retirement community? luck with a back nine.
Almost 45% of the oil produced in Utah, 7.8 million barrels, comes from Duchesne County. That oil feeds our state economy, provides job growth, and supports local business. Here in Duchesne County, we're working to make Utah an economic, cultural, and technological leader. Whether you're here for business or pleasure, Duchesne County will welcome you with open arms and invite you to explore all the beauty of the Uinta Mountains. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.
Let's be honest, you don't know much about Beaver County. Well, let me tell you about it. It's the birthplace of outlaw Butch Cassidy and inventor Philo T. Farnsworth. Some of the best skiing in Utah is at Eagle Point. You've got camping, Canyon Breeze Golf Course, Crusher in the Tushers, Beaver Territorial Courthouse, snowmobiling, renewable energy, Pioneer Car Show, Squeaky Cheese, Ghost Towns to explore, best water in the country, Paiute ATV trails, Old Frisco kilns, horse racing, hunting, fishing, and it's a good place to live. Beaver County, mountains of fun. I could tell you more, but why don't you come and see it for yourself?
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today about the Drug Offender Reform Act, Dora, as it has been called. It's been a very interesting conversation so far. I'm really sorry if you just joined us. Please make it a point to go on next week and watch the first part of this again on our website, thecountyseat.tv. And please, particularly if you are a successful graduate of the program, we would love your comments on Facebook. Gentlemen, let's go back to the conversation here. We kind of left off with you talking about the fact that within the people you treat, those who are in Dora have a very high success rate.
Yes, they do.
Is that justifiable to the cost, do you think?
Well, I think it is, because what we're talking about here is saving lives and putting families back together, putting people back into the workforce. That just makes sense, as far as I'm concerned.
If it's working so well and we want to expand it, why don't we just expand it? I mean, if it keeps people out of prison, then that could bring down correction costs. It could be transferred over, and it looks to me like you get a 5 or 6 to 1 return by putting more money into Dora and less into corrections.
I think there's tremendous support for the Dora program and for expanding Dora, and I think that the funding that's been provided over the past 10 or 15 years for programs like Dora and drug courts is a sign that most of the legislature and government believes that these programs are the way to effectively address substance abuse and crime. So I do think you'll see an expansion of funding for these programs in the future.
What about the federal side?
Well, federal side, the federal government's in the same boat we're in, and they don't have enough money to do everything. 3 big things that drive state government are Medicaid, education, and corrections. That's what takes almost all the money we have in Utah. So the key thing here is where do you spend your money? Hard to compete against public education because we have so many kids and we have so much large needs there. So at the federal level, there's been a recognition that this war on drugs has been an absolute failure. We've spent so much money. What's happened on the war on drugs is 75% of all the resources on the war on drugs since the early 70s have gone into enforcement and interdiction. Only 25% has gone into prevention and treatment. What we're trying to do is change that around a little bit. And so what's happened is that substance use disorders have been recognized as a health problem. That is the way to treat them. That is the most cost-effective way of doing it. So the idea would be is that we have to make treatment available to everybody, treatment on demand. I think once we can start to do that, we can intervene earlier, we can keep these criminal behaviors from manifesting themselves, because people turn to crime when they need money to support their habit.
So in essence, what you're telling me is that this really should become more of a function of the insurance side of the equation than the law enforcement side of the equation.
Yep.
Any other comments on that?
Oh, absolutely. And in my experience, what has ended up happening in the publicly funded system is that we're getting individuals into our treatment programs who did not have the resources for whatever reason to get the appropriate dose of care, get the appropriate type of treatment, because their insurance packages aren't providing the appropriate level of coverage.
Does Affordable Health Care Act, a frightening word in Utah, but does that change this dynamic as it moves forward?
Yeah, completely. It's a game changer. It's the biggest thing that's happened to this system ever.
I think the Affordable Care Act and the parity law that passed at the federal level a few years ago are going to have a significant impact on not just the public system, but the private system that's developing to treat addictions.
But isn't part of that dependent upon expansion of Medicaid at the state level?
It is, and the counties have gone on record as supporting the expansion of Medicaid. Governor's doing a process this summer. He's trying to gather all the best information he can, and we will make a decision that's good for Utah, and we will come up with a Utah model that'll make it work for Utah, because we always do that, and we'll do it probably better than any other state in the country has done it.
Well, we certainly seem to have a track record for that. We're going to take another break here on the county seat. Been a very interesting conversation. Wrap up some thoughts from our guests on the Dora program. When we come back, we hope you will stick with us to this quick commercial break about some of your favorite counties around the state. A reminder, the counties actually fund this program, so give a big thanks to your elected leaders. We'll be back in just a minute with the county seat.
Carbon County is typically known for its industry and coal production, but that is not all. Utah's Castle Country has something for everyone. It is the home of the nationally recognized North Springs Shooting Range. North Springs provides gun hobbyists and professionals a practice and training facility that is second to none. Visit castlecountry.com for more information.
Rediscover your sense of adventure. Welcome to San Juan County. Discover the past. A change of place. Utah's San Juan County, where life is elevated.
In San Rafael Country, you'll discover more adventure and excitement than you can imagine. And it's only 2 hours from the Wasatch Front. Find gorges that descend thousands of feet, trails that go on forever, and the solitude of finding a place all your own. Emery County and the San Rafael Swell. We're closer than you think.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today has been the Drug Offender Reform Act. A very interesting discussion. If you've missed it, I'm sorry, and I would encourage you to watch it again if you've recorded the program, or go to our website, thecountyseat.tv, view it, show it to your friends. Okay, Pat, a question for you. Who is this program for?
The primary concern is public safety always. So what we did is we set the criteria up for Dora that we have no violent offenders. We screen out anybody that's really got a really violent offender. Here's what we want is we want people that have had a drug addiction problem and then have done some crime. We don't want bad people who then do drugs. So that's the key feature. Then we don't take any sex offenders, and we don't take any illegal immigrants. Everybody is screened out, so we make sure that we don't have violent offenders in there, because these people are out into the community, and we want the community to be safe.
Okay, Brent, people are listening to this program so far, and I'm afraid I'm guilty of it too. I'm hearing an urban issue. I'm hearing a Wasatch Front issue.
You know, drugs and alcohol impact every corner of this state, and programs like Dora, in my mind, may even be more vital in rural areas where resources are more limited. You know, we operate Dora in, I believe, 6 rural counties, and because it's one of the few programs available, I think it's even more valuable in the rural areas.
And again, this is important, I think, for viewers to understand, because we have talked about jail funding. This is not a jail program that people are enrolled in while they are incarcerated.
No, this is a program that's designed to be in the community and pulls together community-based treatment providers with adult probation and parole officers who are also out working in the community.
That's just a quick question for you, Sean. You're running treatment centers as a contractor in the Wasatch Front. How would your model look different if you were trying to do something in San Juan County?
It would probably be more focused on outpatient services than residential. But we do provide services to individuals from San Juan County or northeastern Utah. And what has happened is those individuals have not been successful in those communities, and so they're transferred to residential treatment programs on the Wasatch Front. They're paying for it, so San Juan is paying for it, but they're receiving services here, and then we're transitioning back to those outpatient programs in the rural communities. The thing that I wanted to say about it is that in the rural communities, this is a terrible problem, and there are mechanisms for those folks to get help.
Does the path into this program require an arrest and a conviction to get into it?
It does, but Dora is not the only program that we operate. So in the state of Utah, my office at the state level contracts with counties who are responsible for delivering the services. And so my advice to you in that scenario would be to call your county local authority program, and you can find that information on the web or in the county directories. But each county will operate a behavioral health care treatment program, and so if you need mental health care or care for an addiction, that's a great place to call.
Is the cost of a voluntary program pretty much in line with what it costs to treat somebody through the drug offender program?
No, it's generally for us who have private insurance, the model that private insurance will pay for you will be put you in a hospital at about $1,500 a day. We don't do that in the public system. We have not done that for 30 years. We run a subacute model because it's much more efficient. That allows us to get to that.
But wouldn't that actually be better if the private industry and sector, insurance companies, were to cover more on a less costly basis?
That's exactly what we're working on right now.
Exactly what we want.
Good, sounds like another show. Gentlemen, thanks for spending time with us today here on the county seat. Thanks for watching. You know, it's important every time you tune in because these issues are the issues that drive local communities. And it's not the big issues in Washington far, far away. You really need to get involved in your local government. It's where your life happens, and it's where our solutions for the future will come from. So tell your friends about the county seat. Go to our website. Give us some comments on Facebook, and we'll look for you next week right here on the county seat.